Hey guys, welcome to 3 and Out. You can check out the podcast below in the description. And here's what I need you to do. Make sure you subscribe to the Volumes YouTube channel to stay up to date to everything we're doing here on 3 and Out and the Volume. Okay, let's dive into what we just saw. And I have a very, very simple rule when it comes to these Thursday night games. I would say any Thursday night game after like week 2, I don't really judge you. It gets very, very difficult once you get into October, mid-October, late October, November. You were talking about a 4-day turnaround after you just played. I mean, these guys just played 4 straight weeks of NFL football. So the only thing I'm truly judging you on is, do you win or do you lose? And I give extra credit as these weeks go, once you get to week 5, week 6, week 7, when the road team wins these Thursday night games. It's an incredible win. And when it's a divisional game, it doesn't get any better. I don't care who you're playing. And in this instance, obviously these are 2 really good teams, 2 teams that everyone picks to go to the playoffs. So the Rams go on the road after getting their ass kicked by the Cardinals. Hat tip. I'm not going to dive in to critically judge Matt Stafford, who everyone's nitpicking on social media, and I look 25 of 37. Now, did he throw a terrible pick? Yes. Does he do some things that scratch your head a little bit? Of course. That's part of the Matt Stafford package. But I'll take him on my team any day. You want Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance for Matt Stafford straight up? Do the deal yesterday. Also, when you go into like the only goal, there are no style points. This is not college. We're not trying to make the college football playoffs. We're not trying to get extra credit with the BCS rankings. We're just trying to win the game. So when you go in on the road, divisional opponent, even if it's ugly, even if it gets weird, even if the other team's star quarterback gets injured, you don't give a shit. You do not apologize for winning. You get the dub and you get out. I never, ever make huge judgments on these Thursday night games. I say this all the time, like when family members defend or get in arguments about like, you know, the wives of players or the wives of coaches on social media that are defending their husbands. It's like, what do you guys think they're going to do? Not defend them? Like, what? They're emotionally tied. You know, they literally sleep with these people. I never quite understand that. And I saw on social media tonight, everyone's like nitpicking this game. It's like, what do you guys expect? These Thursday night games, as the year goes on, typically get worse. Like tonight was really sloppy. It was an ugly game. Like it was, if I didn't do this for a living, I might have thrown on a movie, right? And left this on the second TV. The baseball game I had on my second TV was also terrible. Somehow the Tampa Bay Rays just consistently kill the Yankees and Red Sox. So I just was stuck, and obviously I have to talk about this game. And I'm invested. I'm an NFC West guy. But that game was awful. It was really bad. It was hard to watch at times. But that's what I expect. I know what I'm getting into. Even though on paper, Rams Seattle looks awesome. I was kind of excited. And then I knew early on, I'm like, yeah, this is what this is going to look like. And then the other thing is like, Seattle obviously lost Russell Wilson when his finger got messed up, and Geno came in and did an admirable job. I think we would all admit, any Giants or Jets fans that are watching this would go, listen, I thought Geno played pretty well. I know he threw the pick at the end of the game, but he also led the touchdown drive. So I'm not, the offense when Russell goes out, that's tough. 2 things about Seattle, because the Rams are 4-1. They beat Tampa. They beat Seattle on the road. Like, they're feeling good. It hasn't been the prettiest thing. They obviously got their ass kicked by Arizona. But you go every team in the league would take 4-1 going into after a Thursday night game. Every single team in the league. There's not one that would turn that down if I gave that option August 30th. Every single team. So they've done their job. It's going to take some time acclimating Matt Stafford. But look, the wide receivers look pretty damn good. And if they can keep running the ball with Darrell Henderson, Sean McVay is a big-time coach, they will be fine. Seattle's got a problem. And I really think 2 problems. 1, I was looking into Shane Waldron, who was their offensive coordinator, who actually they hired from the Rams. And either Jay Glazer or Troy Aikman, one of those guys, said that Pete Carroll had reached out when he was interested in interviewing him, and Sean McVay gave him a high-level recommendation. And that was one of the reasons. Obviously, Pete was impressed once he talked with him and interviewed him. But Sean McVay said, you should hire this guy, and he hired him. It's not going well. And I Googled his resume, and he worked for the Patriots in like 07 and 08 and 09. He was a quality control guy, and then he was a tight ends coach. Then all of a sudden, he just wasn't on the Patriots anymore, and he was coaching in the UFL. And I couldn't find an article detailing this, but did Belichick fire him? Because that's kind of what it looks like. Who in their right mind in 2019 would have left the Patriots as the tight end coach to go be the wide receiver coach in the UFL? Like, I'm taking an educated guess here. Could be wrong. I would imagine he was fired. But here's a reality with Shane Waldron and Seattle. It doesn't look right. It just does not. And this is before Russell messed up his hand. It was last week against the 49ers. Through the first quarter last year, they had -3 yards. The first half, they had 7 points. It wasn't until Russell pulled a couple plays out of his ass and a special team fumble that gave him a free touchdown. Their offense does not look good. Remember how good their offense looked last year for the first half of the season when it looked like Russell was going to be the MVP? This is not working. It's just not. It's just sometimes you hire a coordinator and you get it right? Sometimes you hire a Kyle Shanahan, you hire, a Sean Payton type, an Andy Reid, like those type guys, and those are bad examples because they're head coaches too. But I'm trying to think of a good example. Most of these coaches now are also the play caller, so it's hard to find. But back in the day, when the head coach, like look at Harbaugh with Greg Roman and Lamar Jackson, that has worked very well, right? You got Greg Roman for a defensive head coach. Harbaugh's really just a CEO, whatever you want to consider him, and it's worked out. This is not working out. And clearly Pete, philosophically, he wants to run the ball, but he's not telling you what plays to run or not. It's not going well. And you know what? It's just a reality. Sometimes when you draft a player, you draft the wrong guy. Sometimes when you hire a coach, no different hiring a coach than hiring anyone in any walk of life. You are not going to go 100% on your hires. And I think the offensive coordinator position, more than any other position, especially when you have an established coach, gets nitpicked and every fan thinks the guy's an idiot. And really, you could nitpick Seattle, but they had a lot of success offensively the last several years. Defensively, it's not going that well, but they don't have the horses. The number one thing I will never forget, and I went to Seattle games in the peak of their powers in 13, 14, 15. I probably saw them play live 3 or 4 times. That team was so fucking good, it was stupid on defense. Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett were unstoppable forces. They were fast, they had power, their ability to pressure the quarterback, they were always in the backfield. Bobby Wagner was young and a dominant player. KJ Wright was everywhere. And then you had Cam Chancellor, who was cracking skulls. You had Earl Thomas, who covered the entire field. And you had Richard locking down half the field. Their defense was elite. And they went to back-to-back Super Bowls. Now their defense is Swiss cheese. They had 2 guys, Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods tonight, combined for 19 catches. And 150 times 90, almost 250 yards, and averaging 12.5 plus yards a catch. They get sliced and diced. And listen, I had no problem with the Jamal Adams, what they paid him. Remember, I hammered that home. I had no problem. The price, they gave him $35, $38 million guaranteed, whatever. My issue was you can't trade 2 1s and a 2 for a player that can't cover. So if you could have acquired him as a free agent, it would have been a great deal. But when you had to buy him, for the trade, because you eventually had to, pay him, so it was all kind of a package deal indirectly, it's just a lot. And your pass defense is atrocious. And Pete, at his core, is a DB coach. How can their DBs be so terrible? They kind of struck oil with Quandre Diggs making that trade because the morons in Detroit gave him away for free, basically. But their corners, their pass rush, the whole thing is just, their defense is just bleh. This is not going to work. That is not a team that, at best, and right now at 2-3, they get, 10 days off. I bet Russell's finger will be okay unless he did something really bad, which, I don't think he did. I bet he was just in a lot of pain. He couldn't grip the ball. Seattle's in some trouble. To me, they look like, an 8-9 win team. And 8-9 wins ain't getting into the playoffs. Not in the NFC. Not with the 17th game. The Rams at 4-1, they could screw around. They're probably still getting to 10 or 11. They'll be fine. Arizona's already at 4-0. So worst case, they lose this week. They're at 4-1. You're at 4-1. You give yourself such a buffer. When you're 2-3, you have no margin for error. And you saw tonight, like their margin for error, once Russell goes out, it's like, oh shit, here we go. Because their defense can't really carry him. And even though it kind of made some plays tonight. And ultimately, they only gave up 26 points. But really, it's kind of inflated because the first quarter was such a joke. So it was basically a 3-quarter game, right? I mean, nothing happened in the first quarter. It was 0-0. Missing field goals, turning the ball over, doing weird stuff. I just see this team like as pretty flawed. They either are going to hit bombs to Lockett or DK or do nothing. Their defense isn't going to they're not going to play in many games. Like when they score 17 points, if I just told you going into a game, unless they were playing a terrible team, if they were playing any team that's worthy of like 6 or 7 wins in the NFL or up, so any mediocre to obviously playoff level teams, and they're only going to score 17 points, hell, 20 points, hell, 21 points, Seattle's not going to win many games. And their offense, the Chiefs are kind of like this too, but the Chiefs are like, yeah, let's go 40. We'll beat you 40-35. Seattle can't really do that right now. I don't trust their offensive coordinator. Pete just might have made the wrong hire. Who's to say that Sean McVay didn't kind of want him out of there so he could elevate some better guy? Not saying that's the truth, but it's possible. It's not going well. And it's even before Russell got hurt. The whole thing with Seattle, something's just off. And I think you got to ask yourself, big picture, Pete's going to be 70 years old. You just kind of, you run up to a time where you just go, have we hit an end date? Has he done all he can? He's had a hell of a career. Over the last 20 years, one of the most remarkable head coaches in all of football. What he did at USC, what he turned Seattle into. It just kind of feels like it's coming down the home stretch. He's lost his fastball. We've all, if you have a baseball team, you've all seen that pitcher who when he's young, he's throwing like 96. And then as he ages, but he's still good, he's throwing like 94. And then if he lasts a long time on your team, by the time he's like 33, 34, you're like, God, he only throws like 90. And when he's off, dudes are just hitting 500-foot, moonshots. It feels like Pete's kind of like a pitcher. It's just, used to throw 98 at his peak at USC and even early on in Seattle. Then like the last 4 or 5 years was still throwing like 93, 94 and was crafty. And now it's like he's throwing 89. And guys like Stanton and guys like Judge are just praying he throws a fastball. And that's when I watch Seattle, I just go, yeah, we just know what's coming. And, they're just not that good. Thanks for watching 3 and Out. You can check out the podcast below in the description. And make sure you subscribe right now to the Volumes YouTube channel.